So that's it.
Good afternoon. This is Don Hyman of the Harbor Management Commission, and this is a meeting of the Lower Wharf Committee. It's March 8th. It's 12:49. With me are Belinda Shepard, George Harris, and Jeff Stedman. And this meeting is called to order. We have about a 45-minute time span, so we'll move quickly, but we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay. So the agenda is here. Is everybody, Jeff, you're familiar with the agenda? Hi, Jeff. Let's proceed then. George, can you talk about the current state of the design as
Sure.
Being that I've been out of the room for a couple of months?
We have the design of the sign as approved by the commission back in January, I believe.
Yeah.
And I haven't sent the two minor, really, punctuation changes to the sign maker, because I wanted to see if there was anything else that we needed to do before moving on. So I have a copy of that here. Everyone should have a copy in their emails anyway. And one thing that Mr. Stedman has come up with, and sounds reasonable to me, is that the very first line says, "Welcome to the Lower Wharf." The second line says, "For your safety and enjoyment, please observe the following regulations." Since he's pointed out, since these aren't town regulations, all of them, that should be changed to dropping off the word regulations and just say, "For the safety and enjoyment, please observe the following."
Yeah.
So that's where that stands. And then the rest of the sign is as is.
If the town attorney is okay with that, I'm okay with that. That was their language initially. So I would defer to the town attorney, but assuming that is okay with them, it's okay with me.
And me, no, both, but
Sure.
myself.
Well, I just have some comments, but
Please.
later on in the agenda.
Okay.
Okay.
And thank you. And review of public response to date. Let me comment on that a little bit. Just to review, we sent letters that were reviewed by the town attorney and by the Susquehanna Association president and others, summarizing where we are with this project and sending those letters to all those living who were named in the deed, plus 7 addresses, 7 people who were neighbors on Harbor Road. And I have received 2 undeliverable responses, so I imagine the rest got through. These were registered. I received an undeliverable response from Michael Weatherly of 1036 Harbor Road, and from Allison Simon Nazini, trustee at 1060 Harbor Road. Those were the only 2 return to sender responses that I received.
So does that mean someone else is living there, or have you any idea what that, or it just wasn't accepted, or?
Are those the addresses that you sent the letters to, being that they were neighbors of the?
Correct.
Okay,
Yeah.
so
I sent
someone
to-
else is living there then, I guess, yeah.
I sent to, we did the best effort we could to find names to match the street addresses through the various databases that are available. we found those names, we had the addresses of neighbors, we had the names of people in the deed.
Yeah.
All of them got notice.
Okay.
At least two are dead. Lucy Roberts has passed,
Yeah.
and,
Another lady, no.
Annette
Wait.
Morley has passed.
Mm-hmm.
There may be others, but, those are the only two that I could determine who have passed since this deed was enacted. So, again, you've been receiving responses.
Right, during February, I received some responses, through the Harbor Commission, email system, and also one phone call, that we received, because our numbers were put in the thing from a Berkeley Soper, which I spoke to her for about 20 minutes. These are, would you like me to disseminate these? These are...
Sure.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
These are the responses from the, forwarded to us from the chair of the Historic District Commission. I like the consistency of the sign with Southport Beach because the properties are both town-owned. Then one, I think the sign is ugly, has no bearing on what goes on at Yacht Yard at Historic District. Why can't we have a sign in terms of quality and graphics, not unlike the one at Pequot Library? Similar signs at Trinity and Southport Congregational. The font looks a little corporate and sterile, maybe more nauticalish font, and the language goes over the line, would be easier to read if the second line is justified to the lineup with the first. The bullet points would stand out more as headers, and yes, I agree with that last one. That would be an easy fix when we do send our final adjustments to the sign maker.
Question: are these comments and quotes from members of the Historic District Commissions?
Okay.
So we don't know who said that,
No.
but we know that that's the collective response of the commission so far.
Yes, I forget his name, Alan something.
Okay.
From the Historic District Commission, you asked me to share the sign with him and pass it on to his commission. I guess he did that through email, and these are the responses he garnered from that.
Okay, so these are just limited to the Historic District Commission members.
Correct.
In item number 1.
Correct.
Okay.
Item number 2 is an email from Ms. McManus that we received. I received your letter regarding the signage. I would prefer not to have a large white sign across the street. There is no need for it. It will be an eyesore and a beautiful spot. I'm also wondering if it would pass the Historic Commission. I think you really need to post all those rules. You can do so on a brown sign like the one already on the large rock. It can be put on inside the stone wall or on the rock with the other sign. And the other park, Perry Green, does not have a sign, nor any other park in town, which is not true. And I say no reason why this tiny park has to have one. There's a no swimming sign already. So a little discussion on that. I don't feel that due to the amount of restrictions we've come up with and suggestions that a plaque would fit on that rock, or even if we got a bigger rock, would be as visible as we want it to be.
I agree.
Yeah, there's a lot of things in that from, who is Jay McManus? Mrs.
McManus.
Mrs. McManus,
Mary.
I believe.
Yeah.
Okay. There's a lot of things in Mrs. McManus's response. I would point out that I think you've both seen the communication I've had with the town attorney.
Right.
No sign is not an option.
Right.
It's a legal imperative, according to the town attorney. Let me finish that thought. There needs to be a sign to be consistent with the guidance we've gotten from the town attorney because of the exposure the town has to risk, because of its obligation to warn of risk, and the consequences to the town financially. God forbid someone has an injury, falls off somewhere, strikes their head, and there's no notice of risk we all know that a sign cannot prevent a risk ever, but it will give people something to think about. And no sign gives people nothing to think about. So there will be a sign. And I would point out again that, our commission has approved the language of the sign, subject to these small changes, I think, and appropriated $1,000 or asked for $1,000 to pay for a sign. And that's the money we have, or we hope to have, because even that has not been finalized yet by the RTM, but we're led to believe it will be. So, okay, these Mrs. McManus's points are noted. My own view is at some point, I think we should perhaps invite Mrs. McManus to whatever hearing we ultimately have with the Historic District Commission and air all of these points publicly. And attending that meeting would be, in addition to ourselves, the town risk manager and the town attorney, who would argue our points with us.
Laura from Saskatoon?
Yes, that would be a good addition too. Because I think, for the record, we have a legal obligation now to have a sign, and I think we have a moral obligation to have a sign.
I agree.
I think there are aesthetic issues to be considered, but it's a balancing act. We have to consider moral and legal obligations, as well as aesthetic concerns and budget, and our responsibility to town residents and taxpayers to protect the financial well-being of the town. I mean, we live in a lawsuit-crazy society, and anything can happen.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, in my view, I would, when this comes to the Historic District Commission, I would like to involve all concerned, and that would be the place where this would be aired further. Jeff, did you want to comment now, or is first?
Just my comments for what they're worth. I have a different perspective on this than you do, and I believe the town attorney has made the opinion that a sign is not permitted on the property because of the deed. The deed does not permit a sign. And so I believe his recommendation was that we could proceed if all of the interested parties have no objection to it. But his assessment, the same as it was however many 20-something years ago, is that the deed does not permit a sign. That the only requirement in the deeds is a sign on the attached property. And so I think the people that are being contacted should be aware of all the facts. That the deed doesn't permit a sign, but we can go ahead with it if everybody has no objection to it. And so I think the town attorney has to make a decision if the concerns of the risk manager overweigh the restrictions in the deed, and whether the a sign on the piers itself, when we rebuild the whole, whether we could incorporate a sign into that structure would meet the risk manager's concern. And in the interim, if there could just be signs on the derelict piers, keep off, no swimming, all that sort of thing. But my again, just for what it's worth, this is a historic property that's different than a recreation property, such as Southport Beach. And it was, when the property was acquired, it was with the understanding that there would be no signs. So now we have the issue of the risk manager, and the town attorney has to weigh that. But we should recognize that the town attorney's opinion is if the deed doesn't permit a sign on the lower wharf.
Can I make a point? I agree with you that the town attorney has stated that. He's also stated that we can go ahead and use the town's right-of-way, which would be right out on the road. And if
that would cause more of an issue.
It would cause more of an issue. That's my point.
It can't be done.
And if we say, no, we don't want to put a sign there, we only want to put it on the 101 property, the smaller piece, the town may say, well, okay, but because of our risk assessment, we're gonna put up just a big ugly metal sign at the gate, and it'll be on the town right away, and there won't be anything.
Well, but I think it just has to be, everybody has to know what.
Right.
I think we have to pass that on to the public,
all the
that,
issues on, and the public needs to know that
Mhm.
signs not permitted by the deed in the town attorney's opinion.
I don't think that's the exact language. The deed, speaks to the fact that structure, can't be put there, doesn't say sign to my
But
knowledge.
you made the opinion that the sign.
I think we asked the, I think
Yeah,
we
he said the
emailed
structure, the structure, a sign is a structure. But as so in summary though, but the town has options.
Mhm.
If the all concerned have strenuous objections to putting a sign in the location on the Lower Wharf area that was proposed by the Sasquatch Association, if that objection can't be reduced or diminished or eliminated, then the town has other options, putting it on the other piece of adjoining property or on the town right-of-way. And will that annoy people? It might. Does the town have a responsibility to meet as well? It does.
I think of the two, our sign is a more visually pleasing, less obtrusive if we put it sideways so that the houses that are there aren't looking at the sign. They're
Right.
looking at
Yeah.
one post, basically. All they'll see is one white post there. If the town comes in and says, well, you weren't able to get it done, we'll put it on our right of way on the road, it's gonna be facing all those houses.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Our sign is, I think, the lesser of two or three evils. The idea of putting brass post-its on a rock enumerating the various components of the sign, I suspect at a minimum is prohibitive from a cost point of view.
No, all I'm saying is that when people make a decision, they need to know all these considerations. The property owners need to know that it's the town attorney's opinion that the sign that we're proposing would be a structure and is not permitted by the deed, but could be allowed if everybody agrees to it.
Right.
And my other
Right.
thought was that, again, personally, as a historic property, the sign would detract from that. And my feeling is when we rebuild the deck or the public pier to incorporate something into the design of that, it would be off, well, that's my opinion.
Well, your opinion is important. It's also important to know that at the moment, rebuilding of the pier is, no one knows when or whether that will happen. The risk that the town faces is immediate and present. The moral obligation we have is immediate and present. The aesthetic considerations that you're speaking of are important to remember too, but they all have to be balanced.
Right, and the Historic District Commission has a role in doing that.
And they will.
And they should also understand that the deed, well, again, with just what we
Yeah.
talked, they should know, everybody should know all of the considerations.
That will happen. But I just would like to say, we hear you, we will do this, it will all be aired. As our consultant, I appreciate everything you've said, and we'll take that into consideration as we proceed. And I hope we can, and thank you for that. But I think, we hear you, we heard you, we will act accordingly.
Yeah, that's right. And I think, you also want to guard against someone in the future saying, well, I don't like that sign. And you say, well, you said it was okay, but I didn't know it was prohibited in the deed. You know what I mean? That's why they have to just know all of the...
All of that is, we've posted in the letter that the deed is on our website. That fact will be repeated at the Historic District Commission. The deed's language is well known to those who receive this letter, and everybody in the Sasquatch Association and others. So that information is known.
And we've had multiple public meetings discussing this, the sign, the options, our process for getting the sign instituted.
So I think now we have the reaction of the Historic District Commission, and we have the reaction of a couple of neighbors, and we have the counsel of our consultant.
Mm-hmm.
What are the next steps? And I'm moving into new business.
Yep.
It would seem to me, I don't know the process with the Historic District Commission or what the outcome will be, and there it is.
We need to file an application of appropriateness, which once we file that, I guess they'll, assign us a time on one of their normal meetings.
Okay.
And you had asked me to hold off on that until you got back.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay. Well, this is, in a quick review, seems pretty straightforward and not complicated to do. Let me study this.
Sure.
Does everybody have a copy of it?
No.
As I mentioned, we did one for the forestry committee, the two posted signs that are around on the town hall green.
Yes.
Actually, somebody just disappeared off of here, but those interpretive panels, you have to go before the Historic District Commission to get permission to place those on the.
And that's how you did it, you filled out.
Okay, so everybody is familiar with this process?
It's on their website.
Except me.
Yeah, me too, but I'm learning it.
Okay.
How frequently does the district meet, Historic District meet?
Well, I believe it's once a month also.
Good.
In fact, I can pull it up on there.
Okay.
But quite frequently, so we're not going to be delayed in trying to put this forward.
So this would be a matter of completing this application. I imagine, so that's one, completing the application. And then I imagine it would be responsible to have it reviewed by by the commission itself, by our commission.
Okay.
If you'd like me to work on it and bring it to the next meeting.
That would be great. And of course, reviewed by Jeff too.
Sure.
For anything that can enhance the process. And, I want to repeat, we're not trying to conceal anything or subvert any process, but we're responding to multiple issues, not just one. That is, that this piece of artificially filled historic land is sacrosanct and can't be noticed in one way or another to protect the public.
And then we have also, it's not our responsibility, but have the issue of Perry Green too. So does this mean then that it sets the precedent for putting a sign at Perry Green?
It does set a precedent, but that's up to the town.
It's up to the town.
It's up to the town attorneys and the town.
That gets back to what
Yeah, I mean, Perry Green, any issues regarding Perry Green will be dealt with separately and appropriately, but this is not the issue at hand at the moment.
I think the town attorney and the risk manager should then also, if they're making this determination for the lower wharf, it would be their responsibility to make the same determination for Perry Green.
I don't speak for them.
I know, but it's why the lower wharf and not Perry Green? That's fine.
Because the risk management consultation has focused on that because of various factors that you're aware of. And that's the notice the town has received.
Yeah. You should look, if someone walks along the edge of Perry Green, you could fall off that just as easily as off the lower wharf.
Absolutely. There's risk everywhere. You can't eliminate risk, but you could give people something to think about. If people are coming with children, dogs, handicapped people, disabled people of one kind or another, we have a moral responsibility. Even though it might be obvious to some, that doesn't reduce our responsibility. I can share with you some pictures. I've been traveling the last 6 weeks to areas that were both historic and recreational, and there's no end of signage of all different kinds, both in this town and elsewhere, and there's no consistency to it whatsoever. They range from ugly to beautiful. And all of it involves a compromise, but all of it involves, I think, an exercise in trying to protect and educate the public.
Mm-hmm.
It's a good discussion.
Mm-hmm. So step one is to complete the application. Step two would be to have it reviewed by the HMC, hopefully perhaps by the next meeting.
Yeah.
The meetings are on the second Thursday of the month.
No,
Our meeting.
by our meeting.
Oh, our meeting,
Yeah.
sorry.
Would you be able to do it by
Yeah,
the
yeah.
March 19th meeting?
Yeah.
That'd be great.
That would be great. And then once, let's be optimistic that that is approved in one form or another at the March 19th meeting, then we can file it with the Historic District Commission. And then...
Do you want to reach out to either Miss McManus or Miss Soper?
I think,
wait until we're on the Historic District Commission's agenda?
personally, I think the latter is good. We've already advised everybody that we're talking with the Historic District Commission. We've already advised everybody that there will, they will be notified if there is a hearing, and there will be. And I think that's the forum to have this discussion on these points. And see where it all shakes out.
Yeah. Right.
We can only do what we can do. If the sign, so that'll be the time of options. If the sign does not meet approval of the Historic District Commission or the neighbors, I think, I'm not sure what,
Right, we can table that. I only put that in there because I wanted to talk about the town is fairly adamant that a sign be put up, and that if we had to use their right of way, the town would be, the sign would be much more visible, but more obtrusive.
Okay, so those are the options, and
Right. I mean, perhaps we can make an adjustment to the sign depending on what their issue is.
yeah,
But
True, yeah, if the Historic District Commission
that's a big
does it.
perhaps, but,
given our limitations,
right.
we don't have unlimited financial resources.
No.
Some of the signs that have been mentioned are beautiful, and much more costly than our $1,000 appropriation.
Right.
And I think, we have to proceed in the best
Correct.
way we can.
Yeah.
So, I guess I'm getting ahead of the game, but item 4 is, let's assume that there's whatever the outcome is, if we're trying to be public about all this, Jeffrey, to your point, and so forth, at what point do we either issue a news release on the status of this effort, or invite a journalist to come to a particular meeting, or some combination of the two? How proactive do we want to be on that kind of communication?
My comment would be not to do any of that. Just to put the sign up, and again, the less attention is called to it. It's a historic property, and you raise the issue of putting a sign on a historic property, and you don't know how someone will respond to the news article, or I don't know that it's not going to help us get permission to put the sign there. That'd just be my point. Just if we get permission to put the sign there, then fine. And then if people go there, they see it. Again, that's my...
So, kind of to summarize, no proactive PR, don't make waves.
That's just my...
Right.
Right.
Don't kick a hornet's nest.
Right.
I would agree with that.
Okay. Oh, good. Have you, Jeff, been having conversations with anybody on Harbor Road or any of the, let's call them constituents in this discussion?
No.
Good. Anybody else? I mean, I've tried to share everything I've had. Somehow, when I was on the ship in the middle of the Caribbean,
Right.
I got a call from Berkeley.
There you are.
I was off the coast of Cuba.
The people that live, we've had discussions with them about other matters, including the lower Wharf improvement plan, where we were talking about first fixing the boat launching ramp and doing the work at the lower Wharf. And there were a lot of interested people, and we had a meeting in the I forget which church it was, and people were concerned. They're doing anything down there. I forget how that worked out that we had to remove the first plan for redoing the boat launching ramp was engineered to have a float along the side that would help people with the launching. But that was not something that they had seen there, and they were adamantly, they being the people, the number of neighbors showed up, not just along Harbor Road. They all were not bashful in expressing their opinions.
Yeah, I'm familiar with,
with that.
I'm familiar with that group, and as a longtime member of Community Sailing of Fairfield, I've heard objections to that organization, and I know their point of view. But I think we have to consider not only that point of view, but we have a larger responsibility to the town.
But I still think we have to take direction from the town attorney and from the risk manager.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody needs to know that the deed doesn't allow for a sign. And then figure out how to do it the best way.
Yeah. Okay.
Great.
The other thing, the deed that we wrote into the deed, I say we because it was Attorney Saxel at the time, was the ability to build a dock for the community sailing program. And that was specifically written into the deed, but then we removed that from our plan because it was determined where we wanted to put that, there was ledge. And to put the pilings in would be a big expense to drill through the ledge.
Right.
So that went through a lot of iterations.
Yeah, I remember I was, just for the record, I was part of that process back when Ted Jennings was negotiating that with the Harbor Management Commission.
How was that received? Because I would think that the neighbors wouldn't want a bunch of kids running down there twice a week for sailing lessons.
They weren't thrilled.
That's why we put in the deed.
They weren't thrilled with that idea, but it was approved ultimately and put in. And then when the issue of ledge and the cost complications of installing all of that came up, I can tell you that the Board of Community Sailing felt, well, we're really better off where we are anyway with our two boats, and putting them there would just be more complicated for us. So it wasn't a big loss to just keep the status quo.
Okay.
Community sailing.
But the big thing was acquiring the property because the property owner wanted to build a house on it.
Yeah, Travis.
Yeah.
Well, you know what happened to me.
Yeah. That property, it's interesting. It's almost a perfect rectangle. Nature doesn't like straight lines. So there's, I don't know how much of that is natural and how much of that is man-made.
Right.
But it is what it is. So if it's that, all that said, I think the only other thing I wanted to say is that, I've had, this follows up, this is in the area of Lower Wharf Pier improvement, rebuilding. I think I've copied you all in on the latest communication I had with Senator Long on that. Jeff, did you see that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so he's supposedly doing what he wants to do, a meeting with people in Hartford to try and find more money that would be incremental to any money that came from the SHIP program. And we now have a grant writer being offered up by our first selectman. So we have potentially two sources of money and a grant writer all on board. And we have a plan And,
We can do the grant ourselves as we did for the previous grant.
and not need to work with Bill Gerber's person?
Well, this is my opinion. We got the grant for the previous grant. We understand what the Port Authority is looking for. If they want us to help find it, they want us to do the grant, whatever they want to do.
Okay. Given that we also got the communication from Ulysses Hammond that, the door is open to a grant application, how do we proceed on that, Jeff? What's the timeline for proceeding with the late?
But just for the background, Mr. Hammond called me and he asked about the lower wharf, what it is, and I'm assuming that's because Senator Wong contacted him. So we talked about that, and then I went out to Old Saybrook, not to specifically argue for this project, but I showed the photographs of the project, but for all of the towns interested in the SHIP grant. And then he agreed to put it on the agenda for the Port Authority Board, which was a few weeks ago. And the reason that there was not a grant program last year, he said, is because they didn't have anybody to manage the program. The person who was managing it left because he wasn't treated very well. That's not Mr. Hammond's fault. He's the acting interim director, and he's a person that's known for his integrity, and that's why he was appointed as the interim director in response to what's taken place in the past. So then Mr. Hammond put it on the agenda for the board. I talked with Bill Hurley. Bill Hurley, the town engineer, we didn't have to drive out to New London where they had a meeting. They allowed us to talk on the phone. So he said that you just have 3 people to talk. So I talked, Bill talked, but Bill didn't say, please, we have a project, please fund us. He said, thank you for the previous grant. We look forward to competing with the other towns for it's a new grant. I talked about all the towns looking forward to the grant. And then there was another fellow the Harbor Management Association, but they couldn't get him, his phone didn't work. But anyway, then they approved the motion to have another round. So they have up to, the way like we understood it, is $5 million to distribute among the towns this year. And this grant would be for construction purposes, just like the previous one for the dredging, which requires a 20% cost share. For the dredging project, we calculated the cost share by the work that the town had already done to improve the boat launching ramp, so it wasn't another cash outlay. And the other thing is we have to describe and write the grant application with reference to the harbor management plan, which of course the plan encourages public access, and we provide the background. So I forget whether someone said we have 2 months to do but they want to be able to announce the grants in August, he said.
So the grant isn't currently active and open?
No.
Oh, no, it is. They made the announcement. They notified all the towns.
So we should be working on the grant now?
Yeah, we can start working on the grant now.
Yeah, that's my question. The first selectman has received guidance from Mr. Hammond that includes a link and all the particulars on how to proceed for this application. I was told by Mr. Hammond, he called me too, somehow reached me on the ship.
Amazing.
Verizon people.
Yes.
And he said that there wasn't any earlier application from Fairfield for Lower Wharf. That's what he said.
He called me afterwards because he didn't understand it. And then I explained the grant that we had for dredging, why we couldn't do it.
And you were trying to repurpose the money.
We tried to repurpose the money, but I explained to him what the Lower Wharf project is and why we tried. We were told we couldn't repurpose the money, although Tony apparently is trying to look for that. And then that led to meeting with him in his office and going over the program. But right now, it is an announcement of the grant, the grant program, accepting applications. There's a deadline for it. So we have the source of the funds.
So what will be your plan in applying for that? When will what's your timeline for, if they want to announce the recipients in August, I don't know what the deadline is or
There's
what
the deadline specified on the Port Authority website.
And in the link that was sent to the first selectman and the rest of us.
I'll look right now.
Yeah. So I'm saying we got specific guidance from Hammond and instructions on proceeding, and I want to make sure that we proceed in the most timely way. to do this. So that's why I'm asking you what your next steps are.
Well, just to see when it's due, and then work to get it done by the time it's due. Let me just find out when it's.
It's in the,
I don't know how to pose this, but being a member of this committee, I'd like to suggest that Jeff work on the grant. And if we need the town's grant writer, I'm sure he can reach out.
yeah. I would.
I think the grant has to be submitted through the first selectman's office, which is the way we've done it before. But all right, round 4, here it is. Pleased to announce the launch of round 4 as of March 1. Here's their press release. July 1, and project selections completed by August 1.
All right, so
we have to go before the bond commission.
So our paperwork or digital application has to be in before July 1.
Mm-hmm.
Now, they're also, according to Mr. Hammond, they're in the process of hiring someone to administer this program.
And they'll announce
But that's not the.
yeah, and they'll announce the winners or recipients in August.
Project selections will be completed by August 1. So as they did it in the past, there's a month between the completion of the submittal and the decisions. And in that period of time, they typically ask questions of the people that submitted the grant applications for additional information.
All right, so Jeff, you'll take the lead on that and coordinate as needed with the first selectman's office and his grant people so that we're in before July 1.
Now, if we're not going to be eligible for a grant, so we get that.
That's what I mean.
July 1.
Yeah, no, I'm just, I'm a little compulsive on some things. It's a problem I have.
Not a problem. Attribute.
Yeah, no, it's just spelling out the dates.
Yeah.
I think we may have covered, there is one other thing. Should we set a regular meeting for this committee each month? We don't have to meet, but should we set a schedule of meetings?
I think we should.
And then we can not meet if we don't need to.
We don't have anything to bring up, we don't have to meet. But I think that's an excellent point. Keeps us on track, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
So, I think that's a Jen Carpenter meeting room discussion, because if we have to keep doing it with all this hookup, we have to use this room, and this room isn't always available.
Okay.
So I can ask Jen to give us dates for, April onward.
Can we assume that this time every first Friday is available? And ask her.
Yeah.
So that would be our recommendation. I'm fine doing it another time too, if it's not convenient for people.
The time frame is good for me. Maybe a Thursday in case it's a long weekend.
Right.
Yeah. No. Yeah. Let's try to go for what is this? The first? Are we on the second Friday?
We're the 8th. So.
Yeah. The first was a Friday.
So we're on the second Friday.
Second Friday.
Okay.
Or we could ask for the first Thursday of the month.
Yeah, I'll work it out with her.
Would you? That'd be great.
And we'll publish that. And then we'll have it, and if we cancel, which will probably be often the case.
We have it.
Yeah.
Great.
That's good.
Okay. If Are there any comments from the public? No comments. Yes, Jeff?
I might mention, the last round of the SHIP grants, there was a total of a little over $5 million that was distributed to the communities.
And when was that again, Jeff? Last year or the year before?
2 years ago.
2 years ago, okay.
Stanford received over $3 million of that.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
5 million was the last distribution.
Yeah.
And I forget, did you tell me that will be similar, allotment for this round?
I'm not.
Not certain.
When the legislature authorized this several years ago, they authorized $5 million a year for 5 years. But
Okay.
there was additional monies that was left over from a previous grant. I forget how many millions of dollars that was. So they have a little bit more, I think, and that's
I wonder
why.
if they can roll over their 5 from last year too, or if that,
Yeah.
or if that guy used up
They
their
have to
side.
figure that out.
Yeah.
And then, of course,
That's not how it does, yeah.
it won't affect this, of course, because they've announced this grant, but the governor also made a proposal to eliminate the Port Authority and fold it into the Connecticut Airport Authority. So who knows about next year? So that's why we do this.
Yeah, that's like Perry's Green.
Yeah, but
That's somebody else. That's another problem, another day. Anyway, it's all related, but it always is. Are there any other issues that we need to discuss?
The minutes for this meeting have to be submitted. You got that?
I will prepare minutes for the meeting.
They can be as concise as,
Very concise.
yes.
Yeah, no,
And they have to go to someone to be posted.
I'll send them to Betty.
Okay. I motion we adjourn.
So moved?
If there are no objections,
None?
and then let's adjourn.
All right.
Good, I can get to my